Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Unsecurity Podcast. I'm Megan here with Brad Nye, and joining us today is Heidi Fessler. I'll let you introduce yourself, Heidi, but we're very excited to have her join us today.
Thank you, Megan, and I'm very excited to be here with you today. I get to introduce myself, I guess. I am Heidi Fessler. I'm an attorney. I have my own law firm, Innova Law Group, PLLC, and I focus my practice on privacy and cybersecurity. And I've been a lawyer for, 35 years this year, I think.
Oh,
30 years. And in that time, I've done a lot of things. For years, I never thought I was at all a cyber attorney. And then I read what cyber attorneys do and realized, oh gosh, I am a cyber counsel. So now I call myself that as well. But I focus my practice in most of the time in cybersecurity and helping companies keep themselves secure, get themselves to security, and working with great teams like FRSecure, where Megan and Brad are, to help do that because I'm just the attorney. They're the experts.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, I have way too much experience working with attorneys and legal counsel
I'm
and
sorry.
response, and uh, most people that do that don't seem to get it. It's always so frustrating when you write up a report and then they're like, "Well, can you say that there was no evidence found?" I'm like, "It's because they weren't doing what was right." No, I can't. Like, they didn't have any logs, so no, I can't say that.
Well, I think I've experienced that a lot where I go to a customer or a client and I say, and they've had an incident. I say, have you ever had an incident before? No. And then I say, have you ever looked for one? Oh,
No.
no, we would know.
why
So,
would you do that?
well, if you don't look, you will never find it. So, unless they totally shut you down. Yeah, I think that's very true. I think a lot of attorneys, frankly, we are trained to say that we know things when we sometimes don't. And then go quickly learn it. And I don't think this is a good area where you can just quickly learn this area. It's taken me a long time and I feel confident, but I still learn new things every single day, which is why I love this area.
So, well, yeah, I know we're looking forward to digging in on that and doing a lot of that kind of knowledge sharing of what is cyber counsel because I think talking with you, seeing your title, was the first time I'd formally seen that. Brad may have in his experience, but
I mean, they are the counsel for the insurance company, but whether or not they are specialized in that, I can't say, but I would be surprised.
I would be
right.
too.
How's that for a legal answer?
That's pretty good. You have a future in law.
Well done. Before we launch off too much, we always like to start off with talking a little bit about ourselves, our hobbies. So I'll give you a little chance to think, Heidi, and let Brad talk about what are you up to, Brad?
Yeah, so I'm almost done with my Millennium Falcon. It's been a year. I've got my one mandible here. See, it's got an LED. It's very cool.
Nice.
I was showing it off earlier. Uh, so that's been that. Next month will be it. I'll be worked on it for a year and completed. So I don't know what I'm gonna do next.
I'd say you're gonna have a hole in your life.
I
That's
know. I'm a little bit sad that it's almost done.
uh, the one
Impressive.
problem with those long projects. Yeah. Um, do, Do you have anything you've been working on lately, Heidi, that you'd like to share in your personal time?
Personal time, I ride a horse very poorly, but I do ride a horse. But I also am actively working my bucket list of things I want to do. So my
Awesome.
most recent was dog sledding,
Oh,
which,
cool.
by the way, everyone gets injured when you dog sled, I found out. And it's not easy, but I loved it. I did crack a few ribs,
Ooh,
but I loved it. And so that's my most recent thing. And I'm now looking for what's my next piece.
Oh, that's
very
awesome.
cool.
Well, yeah, congrats on checking that off the list and good luck pursuing the new thing. Had you ever broken bones before? Maybe that's a good question.
I break way too many bones.
No more cracked ribs on that bucket list. That's one of the most painful things.
My fun fact is my husband broke both my arms a couple years ago
Oh my
while
goodness.
skiing. While skiing, it wasn't intentional,
No, no, I hope not.
but both arms. And I like to say I
Wow.
didn't miss
Oh,
one day of work.
wow.
So I do break.
Yeah. For me, I think the biggest thing for me is our kids went to camp just last week. So my husband and I got to have some just be together as adults. Like before the kids, we were reflecting. It's like it's only been almost 12 years since we had more than a night together. So it was awesome to send them away for 5 nights, and they had a blast. We just enjoyed the peace and quiet and things moving at a little slower pace than they do when you're chasing after kids and being responsible for have you done this and will you do that and all the other stuff. So I'll go with that one today. Awesome. Well, so maybe we want to start with a key question for you, Heidi. I know we talked about a couple like this in a few different ways, but um, I kind of thinking of taking it from the angle of like, why should general counsel probably not be your cyber counsel? Because I think a fair number of organizations have someone filling that general counsel role, whether it's an employee or a consultant.
Right, exactly. A lot of companies have a firm that
Yeah.
they utilize. That firm may or may not have somebody qualified to be cyber counsel, but a lot of companies have the attorney if they're smaller,
Hmm.
and they play the role of general counsel, which is a valuable role. But essentially, usually your general counsel or that primary counsel is essentially a business lawyer. They're not necessarily, and actually probably most assuredly not, a technology person. Lawyers are kind of, we're not on the cutting edge of technology. I can tell you that in a law firm. And so they're not always the best technologists. But also, their job is often, the next round of investment funding, all those different things that are really crucial and important. And then they have their specialists in different areas. They don't usually have a cyber counsel as a specialist, and a lot of firms will say that they could provide it. I haven't met many who do what I do. So I'm different than that. And so I come into it as somebody who's worked with a lot of teams of such as FRSecure a lot of times and understand how you work, how companies work, and really how the different parts inside and the external parties that they bring in coordinate to provide instant response. But even before that, how they envision, are they protected enough? Who they need for consulting to put together some of those protections? Because most companies, although I think it's getting better, they have an MSP which does their IT if they're not big enough to internalize it, which frankly I think you have to be really big to internalize that well. And then the MSSP, a lot of them don't have an MSSP. They think their IT is going to do that, which is not right. Or they have somebody who says they can do it and put some layers of protection in, but they don't even have that. So they don't really understand how they're protected. So I oftentimes can guide the company in getting protected as well and finding the right people to put those protections in place. I write a lot of policies, but I know my lane. I know my swim lane, and I know when they need to bring in those people who are really, really strategic, understand the system settings and the tools that they need to bring in.
Yeah. I think one of the things that we really preach is, I mean, we do security properly and you'll get compliance, but at the end of the day, it's about defensibility. Can you defend your decision, regardless of what it is?
That's right.
You need to be able to defend why you made a certain decision. You can't just put your head in the sand and go, I didn't know. That's not
Yeah.
going to fly anymore.
Especially if you're under a regulatory framework, if you're a HIPAA company, if you've got any personal information of any nature whatsoever, you're obviously going to be under some privacy regime, some privacy regulations. And if they're not thinking along the regulatory mindset, which oftentimes they're not, they're going to miss exactly what they need to be doing and understating it.
Well, and if you look at the state privacy laws that are all going all over the place, and California and all whatever, it's interesting because they're not prescriptive by any means. It says
Right.
a reasonable security program.
That's
And
right.
if you don't like, if you're not a security person, how do you know if
What's
it's
reasonable?
reasonable, right? So that's why, making sure you work with somebody that you trust is
Is
so important.
And that person you trust has got to know what they're talking about. So if you're
Mhm.
looking at just your internal counsel who's not versed in this, was it reasonable to make that decision based on that lawyer's advice? Probably not. And as counsel, if I was inside sitting in that company and I didn't have the experience, I wouldn't want to. It's like asking an attorney to be your patent attorney when they have no experience.
Mhm.
Really bad idea.
Yeah.
I have a joke. Oh, I bet. Do you do patent law too? That's one of the jokes we say to each other as lawyers. Because no, you better not. But sometimes your client will think you're a patent lawyer too, just because you're a lawyer. And
Yeah.
then you do my divorce tomorrow too. Yeah.
Well,
So
I think legal and security are very similar in that people hear that and it's a broad term, but there's so many specialties. Nobody's going to be an expert in everything.
no,
Right.
no.
Yeah. So if you're
Understand
talking
what you're
about,
doing.
yeah, yeah. So if you're talking to about one single attorney claiming that they can talk to you about anything involving the law or any specialty, then it's it sounds like you'd better run for the hills.
Oh yeah. I always say I don't do that. I don't do that kind of law. I can tell
Yeah.
you this.
Yeah.
So kind of on that note, Heidi, is there anything like for people listening, they might be IT managers or somebody at their organization that does bump into legal and bring questions to their legal team or individual, like, is there anything that you can think of that they should look for to kind of help tip them off as to whether they're asking the appropriate person or how to approach maybe their general counsel or other firm to really understand if they have that cyber counsel level of expertise? It sounds like it's very rare, so you kind of just assume no, right?
Yeah, I know when I see it, but people put themselves out there as that
Yeah.
with absolutely no experience. I mean, have they done and have they managed cyber incidents and the response process? Have
Hmm.
they helped and assisted in gaining security compliance with the various regimes? Like I've helped lead companies through getting SOC 2 certification and things like that.
Yeah.
That means I understand controls and those things that the IT team probably understands, but that attorney probably doesn't if they're the wrong one. So I would ask about those sort of areas, like, what about SOC controls and things like that? And are we doing enough? And what cyber coverage is and how does the coverage apply and when doesn't it apply? Things like that would probably suss out who's not real, that's not their area. And maybe just say, are you at all versed in cybersecurity and the obligations and protections? Because if you're not, we need to just engage with somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like in a lot of cases, if you have actual cybersecurity staff, then they're going to be more knowledgeable in that area. So then it's just really getting coordination between them as the subject matter experts and then your legal experts who might know better, like, okay, well, if the regulation or compliance standard says that we need to do this, and my subject matter expert is saying, here's how we do it, they can kind of connect the dots a little bit and say, well, here's maybe where we can give a little bit versus we absolutely have to do that, have a documented process, something to that effect.
Yeah, exactly. The issue is that oftentimes people don't want to say we need a lawyer because they don't understand why a lawyer would know
Hmm.
enough to be of use. And so understanding that the lawyer is going to say what's reasonable. I probably
Mm.
am a better judge of what's reasonable under the law than the IT person
Hmm.
Yep.
because I know the reasonableness standards. So what is reasonable is, they may not have policies in place, written policies, but they might have policies, the machine policies, some of those controls built into the systems. Is that going to be demonstrated as reasonable enough? Well, I think think you need both, frankly. But beyond that, and I understand those. The other people wouldn't actually understand the complexity.
This goes back again. I feel like I repeat myself 200 times on this podcast, but you have to be able to communicate with the business in a language they understand. So, I had one of my clients had a vendor have a incident and shut down. And so they reached out to me to say, what should we do? Made recommendations. And the general counsel said, okay, if this is what the expert is saying, I'm okay with it. Cause she fully was like, I need you to explain it to me. So, but being able to communicate in a way that is clear and that I could, and having that relationship to be able to say, hey, Heidi, here's what I recommend. And you being able to then interpret that from the legal standpoint to say, okay, we're in a defensible position because we do have an expert. Yep.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, for instance, I was called by a client, a big global client that had a security breach of a lot of private data. And I said, well, can I talk to your head of IT? Because I need to know what you did to make sure that the information is preserved. So we have some forensically defensible copy of the information. Oh, he's our IT guy. He's really smart. I said, I trust that. Okay, just talk to him. And it took pulling teeth. And he finally got him on the line. And I said, well, how did you collect the information? He goes, collect? Heck no. I just cut the tie and flipped into another system and wiped the other one. And in the world of security, you just messed up the entire, I can't defend what happened because I don't know what happened now.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to
find the worst.
Yeah. That happens actually a lot. In a company I work with, they did that and they just didn't think it through.
Yeah.
And we had just done an instant response exercise.
So I think that kind of leads me to another question of at what point, so at what point would you recommend, somebody reach out to legal or to an IR firm or to insurance to maintain that defensibility?
Immediately if there's an incident. But I think the most effective way to handle this for companies is to pick their third parties right away before you have an incident. Have a call, talk about what roles they would play. Put them on retainer. I don't care if I'm on retainer because, retainer means something different in the legal world than it does in most other businesses. It means I just want to know that we have an agreement that if something happens or if they need help, they'll call. And the same they need to have that group to come right in because that delay is so painful. And it's really not, you can't essentially truly recover if you don't have immediate proper actions. Like I said, if they start wiping databases and flipping, stuff, you can't recreate that. So I think the best time is to get your people ahead of time and then get your own internal team comfortable with them. I have a lot of clients who call me and say, hey, we just had this happen. How should we respond? And I'm like, yeah, here you go. 10 minutes later, I've got the response to them. They can go forward. And, 10 minutes of an attorney's time is cheap.
It's a lot better than after the fact.
That's right. Yeah. And I'm amazed. They're all so relieved. They feel such comfort that they can make that call, get that advice. And I say, don't touch the system. You need to get so-and-so's in here right now. Call them now. I tend to make sure that they marshal their assigned troops.
Yeah. I mean, we do something similar with, our VCSO clients. We do an incident response risk registration where we get their tech stack, their IR plan, any of that stuff. So we already have it in the event they're going through the worst day of their life.
Yep.
And then they're trying to pull all this information. That can save hours and hours of time just to do 30-minute call.
Yep. So the first step is the right step, right? You want the first step they take to be the right one, not the wrong one.
Right.
And that's important. So I like to be around before it happens.
Yeah. Help get everything, like you said, lined up, ducks in a row, doing the right step forward. Um, well, and I just think back to, I think your comment about the lawyers understanding what's reasonable too. So like two different things. There's general compliance and what you should be doing to protect your organization proactively, and then there's the incident response activities and the essentialness of, hey, make sure you want to get the bad guys out, but let's make sure we do it appropriately so that you don't wipe the data that we need in order to show what was going on, to identify how did they get in, what did they have access to. I think if you're not versed and experienced, it might seem good, like, yeah, just erase all evidence that anything happened. It's like, well, but if something did happen and you have responsibility to report that it happened, usually a legal responsibility to report that it happened. If you don't know how the scope was limited, then you kind of have to report that anything was possible, and that's what you want to avoid.
Yeah.
Well, and also when they get into the emails and they start sending out through their emails, that company that didn't take adequate protections has downstream liability. And so
Yeah.
often they blow that stuff away. And now how are you defending it?
Well,
You're
I always drove me insane with like several places I worked in the past. They were like, we only want 30 days of email. We don't want to keep anything historical. We don't want to. And I'm like, why? Well, then we don't have to produce it at discovery. I'm like, you don't think that if somebody's suing you, they don't have a copy of this, and you're not gonna know ahead of time proactively. You're gonna have to react. Is
Mhm.
that really how you want to do it? And they're like, oh, I hadn't thought of that. I'm like, how? What? How?
Well, or all the times they say that I don't need anything, logs or anything more than 30 days away. And I'm like, well, these people have been sitting in your system and now I can't tell you when they got there.
Right?
And the team can't tell you when they got there. And what are we supposed to do? We don't know what they did the whole time.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, it's okay. We know they got in. No, they could have been there for 2 years. But the Chinese were in the US systems for 2 years before we found out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, you guys know all about that.
Now, what do you think about when should somebody contact insurance versus contacting like yourself or an FRSecure? Because as soon as you contact insurance, they're going to take over.
That's right. Well,
So,
one of the things I would say is that if you want good cyber counsel, get them on board first, but before you have an incident, because then you get them approved by your insurance company, but you picked them, and
Yeah.
they're belonging to you. You're not panel counsel, because panel counsel, they are all about the insurance company.
mhm,
So get your own, and they apparently it's very easy to get an endorsement that says that this counsel. I've gotten approved by after the fact, but that takes a while, right? And that just slows down the whole game. But by having cyber counsel that you picked on at the beginning, then cyber counsel can actually be the one through which your team gets retained.
mhm,
Mhm.
And that way the whole investigation and the instant response is, at least parts of it will definitely be protected by attorney-client privilege, because I sit over the top. Not that I'm telling people, all of you, what to do. Trust me, I don't do that. You know what you do. But I sit over the top. And at times I can say very strategically, I know you're working on this, but I need this question answered right now. And target somebody to get me information so we can do a communication out, that we need to do. Things like that. And then if I'm on the top and already there, then insurance isn't going to come in and take over, right?
right.
We're going to have the right team in place and you'll already be approved. That's the best way to do it. Now, if that doesn't happen, I still think every insurance policy provides for the retention at the front. And there's a certain amount of legal fees that the client is going to be responsible for anyway. They're going to pay that out of pocket. So putting me there first, or somebody like me there first, helps me inform their decision rather than having panel counsel who doesn't know what they're doing. Or even if they know what they're doing, being truly beholden to the insurance company. Because panel counsel is going to be looking for every reason to void the policy as
Yeah.
well. and they're really not operating for your benefit to get you up and running and yet protected.
Yeah, that's what we see from the same avenue of your incident responder support team too. If you're relying on your insurance to provide incident response, forensics, I mean, I think we've reflected on those stories on the podcast before. It's like their interest is to get the bad guys out, reduce costs, make it quick, not necessarily to go back and patch the holes or resolve the problem or really truly understand how it happened and why and dig in which case, as we've seen happen before, you may just get compromised again. You may not know how the attacker got in and what you need to do to improve your security posture so that it doesn't happen again.
And you
And
can't tell your clients what happened
Mhm.
so that they can feel sure that you got this handled.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a waste if you don't do it the way we say.
Yeah. What about you've mentioned communications. Do you handle like the public relations side of that and messaging, or do you work with somebody that specializes in that?
There are great teams that specialize in it, and I'm definitely not replacing them. But when you need a fast communication out to everybody who might have gotten a phishing email that came out of your systems or something very fast, I've written those a lot of times.
Okay.
And actually, clients have gotten compliments on thank you so much for telling us so quickly. This is a best practice we're going to implement. In fact, we're saving the email and we're going to use that exact language. So it must have been okay. Not a success. I must have got an A on that assignment, but I'm not replacing all crisis communications. There
No.
are times where you need a team out there working the media and all of that, and that's invaluable. But
Okay.
having your cyber counsel help guide them as well to keep them on task is not a bad thing.
Well, and again, it keeps everything under the attorney-client, or well, the majority of stuff under attorney-client, which is so important.
And I, in the end, author the final report, not because I'm putting all the information in, but I put it in together and then together we work on it. And that is usually attorney client privilege, the full report. We usually do a pared down report that is more publicly, we can give out more, but
Yeah,
some gritty is no one's business, right?
a lot
It's
of yeah, yeah. When we work with attorneys in that case, it's always we write up the report in draft form,
yeah,
work through it, make sure everybody's on the same page, and then the attorney finalizes it. But I mean, we do
the
the
majority. Oh yeah. You do the heavy lifting. I make it look prettier and cast it in the
Oh,
right light.
yeah. We're about at time, but I want to ask you one last question, Heidi, which is if you could narrow it down, what do you think is the most challenging or frustrating part of your job?
Frankly, my job is explaining why you need me
Mm,
because most companies just don't get it until they've done it and then they get it. Then they understand and they appreciate it.
yeah.
But I think it's probably the same thing with you guys, right? A lot of clients, when they get hit at first, don't know that how much they need you guys to come in and run the show rather than their internal team who are hard
Mhm.
workers. I would say this: your internal attorneys and your internal IT, they have a job to do still, and they need to do their jobs, and that job probably took them every second of their days anyway.
Yeah.
How are they
Yep,
going to do this?
yep.
So
When it's not something that they do
good.
on a regular basis or
That's
have
right.
ever done.
Yep. And I love it. I know you guys love this area too. I love getting in there and helping and
Mhm.
making it.
Nice.
Yeah, especially when you're in the middle of that incident. Do you want somebody just figuring it out on the fly, doing it for the first time, or someone who's been there, done that, knows the processes to follow, can help make that whole experience more smooth for you? So that's
Make it
awesome.
calm, right?
Yeah,
Keep the
keep it calm.
Yeah.
yep.
That is equally important in those situations.
Yep.
Thank you, Heidi. Before we wrap up, we always like to give an opportunity to kind of do a shout out or express some gratitude thanks to somebody in our lives. So I'll again give you another moment to think about that if you want to do a shout out and say, Brad, do you have a shout out to anyone you want to give?
Yeah, I'm gonna give it to my kids because I got a new power washer and they actually helped out, like, and were actually helpful and did a fair amount of cleaning of the house over the weekend, which saved me a lot of soreness. So, it's,
That's excellent. Heidi, are you ready for with yours, or should I go?
Sure, I'll give a shout out to my husband for going on a fishing trip and letting me not have to cook for a week. Yay.
That's awesome. I'm actually going to give a shout out to my husband as well, just because, again, kids out of town, it was just nice to quiet things down and have the extra time together. And so just that I appreciate him. So awesome. Cool. With that, we'll wrap up. I don't think we know what we're doing quite yet for our next episode, so we'll keep that a surprise. But as usual, listeners can reach out to us at unsecurity@FRSecure.com or submit the form through the website if you have any questions, suggestions, want to appear on the show, or so forth. So thank you. Thank you so much, Heidi. It's been great fun. And until next time.
Thank you.